What's up, Maidenless? I am one of your hosts, Phoenix.
And I am your other host, Titan.
And welcome to one of our new series, Devil's Advocate. If you're new to the channel, we cover things all RPG. Now, this is one of our new series, Devil's Advocate, where we take a look at games that we absolutely love and then tear them apart. Nothing says love like nitpicking something to death. Ask your girlfriend, she knows the tactics. Titan and I absolutely love Elden Ring, and for both of us, this falls in our top 5 of favorite games of all time. I talk about this all the time, but I have 5 characters waiting for the DLC to drop. I've created and played through with all 5 characters back to back, in a row, no time in between. That's how much I love this game. Let's start with the story. Stop me if you've heard this one before. Elden Ring, what story? As cliche as this may sound, the haters didn't miss on this one. When you start the game, you are told that the Elden Ring has been shattered.
Oh, what's an Elden Ring?
You are tarnished, and you're the only one who can save the lands between.
What is a tarnished, and what is the lands between?
Hey, shut up. You're also maidenless.
Does that mean I'm...
Anyway, now, set out on your tragic journey. You would think someone at some point would answer those simple questions, but not only does the game not tell you what these are, it doesn't tell you anything. Ever. At any point. For any reason. All jokes aside, Elden Ring has some amazing lore, but one of the worst untold stories I have ever attempted to follow of any game ever. Let's take my main man Radahn, or Star Scourge Radahn as his proper title, for example. When the game first launched, he was one of the most talked about bosses in the game, as he was one of the hardest to defeat. I'm not going to go over everything, but I'm going to pretend that you know who he is and how he works. So this guy fought Malenia to a stalemate and was inflicted with Scarlet Rot, which left him as a feral creature feasting on enemies and allies alike. What you don't know is that he was one of the strongest of all demigods and learned gravity magic, so when he grew to his massive size, he could continue to ride his beloved steed. He was also using this magic to hold back the stars and protect the lands. This guy was a giant, dangerous teddy bear who could have easily destroyed Malenia if he wasn't focused on both of those things while facing off with her. I mean, wow, she was extremely powerful, and they came to a stalemate while he was holding the stars in place and keeping himself from crushing that pitiful looking horse. All this knowledge changed my perspective on him on subsequent playthroughs, as he became one of my favorite bosses to face, because I then felt like the festival was such an honor to give him a warrior's death. But don't you think that would have been a powerful moment for all players the first time they faced him? Now, to be fair, Elden Ring, like most Souls games, have great environmental storytelling. But speaking of Elden Ring itself, not all Souls games, deep story beats are the kryptonite of all open world games, as you can't control what the player will do, so you can't control the pacing very well. But imagine if any other game did their story like this. Gamers would have their torches and pitchforks at the ready. As much as I love this game, the storytelling is trash, and you have no idea why you're doing anything, and most of the time, why something happened. You just say, okay, and keep going. Now you can go find the story if you look really hard, but again, that's not effective storytelling.
Alright, so I want to kind of stick very close to that point. It's the lack of a coherent narrative that really sets this back a lot. I've played many games before that lack any story whatsoever, doesn't have any lore, but it doesn't take away from the gameplay experience, but it takes away from getting connected to the world. Elden Ring is this vast, huge open world with an overwhelming amount of content, including NPC conversation, hidden caves, and mines to explore. You cannot say that Elden Ring does not have a great open world design. The issue comes from its lack of context for the world. One of the first NPCs that you come to will explain a little about what you need to do, but once you've exhausted his dialogue, you'll never know to go back and talk to him later in the game. And after you do talk to him again, he'll disappear and go somewhere else completely. Without any clue of where he is, you either have to resort to YouTube or online forums to find the answer, or just blindly run into him if you're lucky. Now, on the other hand, some players do enjoy this. If you're that type of player that has hours upon hours to look in every nook and cranny of the world, then more power to you. But the general population, most people have a few hours a day to put into a game. And if 3 of the 4 hours that you're playing is nothing but wandering around, eventually this gets boring. But what's important to realize is that even without knowing the lore and everything about the world, the game still offers plenty of content. which allows every player to find what's enjoyable.
Okay, what about level design? Personally, I never had a real problem with the level design when I was playing Elden Ring. I knew going in this was an open world RPG, so I treated it as such. But then I would see players online as well as friends confused and getting frustrated when navigating the beginning parts of the game. Especially when they would get stuck on Margit, the first real boss meant to test and teach you how to deal with combat and how to navigate the game. If you don't feel like you're ready, go level up, get some new equipment, and then come back. Souls games for the most part do a great job of teaching their players how to play the game and what to expect. And this is Design 101 to teach the players early on how to navigate your game. But when you get to the road leading to Margit, there is a pull to go right to him based on the level design itself. For starters, there is a small camp of guards guarding a gate. And that leads directly to the road to the first major boss. This makes sense to anyone who has played video games for any real amount of time that this is the intended way to go, as the path on the opposite end seems open and doesn't lead to any real destination at first glance. And to add insult to injury, if you follow that path, there's a real chance that you run smack dead into the game's first dragon. Again, video game logic. It's way too early to fight a dragon out in the open, so this must not be the correct way. Once you get to Margit, you can only battle him or go back the other way, or at least that's how it feels from a design perspective. This led to so many players trying out a Souls game for the first time, putting their controller down. They were ill prepared for the fight as they pretty much ran right into him with very little time in the open world. This is bad design. Now I could tell you in the most sarcastic voice, just get good or go explore. But the reality is most players are going to go where they believe the game is leading. And that's right smack into an ass kicking.
And I think that is probably one of the biggest problems with Elden Ring is the ease of playing. Look, the real first kick in the face is the tree sentinel at the Church of Ela. This humbles you early in the game. Elden Ring is set up where each section of the map is progression, each getting slightly more challenging than the last. What gets me though is that the game gives you a very clear pathway at the beginning of the game where to go. The caveat, like Phoenix mentioned, it's the wrong path entirely. If you follow where you think the game wants you to go, you're going to end up dying over and over again until you find out that you could have went down instead of up. Honestly, I spent hours hovering around the Church of Ela because I was so lost and confused. Going back to something Phoenix mentioned earlier, I was a part of the players trying out a Souls-like game for the first time, and I was 100% ready to put my controller down and never play again. And if it wasn't for him helping me out, I would have. This game does nothing to help out new players in any kind of direction, and from a gaming perspective, it doesn't make sense. You should want anyone who plays your game for the first time to give it a chance to beat it. I get Souls fans enjoy that type of gaming, and that's perfectly fine, but at least add options for the casual fans as well. YouTube should not be a tool necessary to complete the game. I think they should add more features that allow players more easy mode content, such as waypoints, easier boss battles. This would allow a larger group of people to enjoy it, but they cater to the Souls-likes fans, so we don't really get that game at all.
If you treat Elden Ring like a community game where you learn lore, story, builds, and strategies from each other, this can make it feel alive and make you feel like you're part of something special. I know that's how I felt. I would learn from other community members, and then I would share that information with Titan, who would then share that information with his friends. I was used to this type of game because I've been a major Destiny fan since the beta back in 2014. In the same vein, you would have to rely on lore masters like My Name is Bife or Mylan Games for story, and community leaders for best strategies, which formed a great community over the years. But if you put those feelings aside and you can admit that these are not good game qualities, at best the developers pass down those game responsibilities to the players. This is something to keep an eye on, as the Souls community before Elden Ring was a much smaller niche community. Now that it has exploded, you've seen 3 Souls-like games in 2023 alone, and the rhetoric that I've seen around these games have been, if you criticize them in any way, you don't understand Souls games, or you need to get good, or you don't have what it takes to talk about it. And this is a dangerous path for a genre going down the line. An example I want to give, Lies of P has one of the best stories of any Souls game to date, so I don't want to hear that Souls games can't be good unless it has a vague story elements, confusing maps, or ease of play. These things can and should be improved upon.
Alright folks, well that wraps up our very first Devil's Advocate. So if you enjoy Elden Ring and you enjoy this kind of content, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe if you haven't already, and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. And join us every Friday morning. We'll be there.
You be there.